everyone. Welcome to another episode of Triangle Be Well. I'm your host, Howard Jacobson, and I am joined in the studio by my producer, Amnon Nissan. Hello, Amnon.
Hello, Howard. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
Oh, just fine.
Yeah, it's been
Cold.
cold,
Mm.
right? Tonight's supposed to go down to 15 or something like
Don't remind us.
-6 Celsius. And one thing I notice is how much our behaviors change when it gets really cold. So I don't usually wear a jacket. I'm wearing a jacket now because I was going out of the house in a sweater, my favorite sweater, and my wife looks at me as I'm going out and says, "You can't go on TV looking like that. You look like a homeless person." Apparently there were threads coming out. So I took it off and I put on this nice jacket that I never wear. And we do all sorts of different things when the weather's cold. We sort of shop more. We stay inside closer to the hearth. So it's interesting how little things like that can really affect our behavior. So today I thought I would talk about behavior and how to change our behavior on purpose and for the better and not just randomly or in knee-jerk response to environment. Before I do that, I'm going to invite you to join the conversation if you'd like. So folks who are on Blab, what do? They can just blab away, right? They know what to
Yeah.
do. So blabbers, go for it. If you are watching on Nissan Communications, you can call in at 919-518-9773. You can also on Skype chime in at Computers 2K Voice, 2K like the number 2 and the letter K, like today's show is brought to you by the number 2 and the letter K, Voice, Computers 2K Voice on Skype. I would love to hear from you. We've had just a couple of live callers and a few people chatting in, and it's great. It really animates me. It makes me realize there are people out there watching, even though I'm in a studio surrounded by amazing equipment, and so we can get that conversation going as well. I'm high legally, so off of a workshop that I did with my friend Lee Newland, who is co-owner of Peaceful River Farm. It was called Healthy Eating for the New Year. It was on Saturday. We had 25 people show up, crammed into this wonderful, cozy demo kitchen. Lee made incredible food. She made a beet salad. She made a rubbed kale and with a peanut butter Asian sauce that was just amazing, and a leek broccoli soup. And I talked about the connections between disease and diet, and specifically, a lot of people had questions about protein. They're like, "Yeah, I know I should eat this way, and I'm still scared about protein." So that's going to be a topic for another time. Today, I wanted to talk about shifting behavior. And just before I do that, an invitation for another cooking class that I'm also doing at Peaceful River Farm, which is in Chapel Hill this Thursday, the 21st of January. It is on soup, or it is soups on. So we're going to make 3 delicious winter soups. So if one of the things you like to do in cold weather is have comfort food, this would be a great class for you. You can find out more about it and sign up at trianglebewell/events, or just go to trianglebewell.com and click the events link at the top, and you can sign up for that. If you're really into last minute stuff and you live in near Durham, North Carolina, tomorrow night I'm doing the first of 3 classes on diabetes, reversing and preventing type 2 diabetes through diet. And that's at Holistic Health Studio on Hackberry Lane in Durham. And you can sign up for that. You can also at the same place, it'll be a little more circuitous, a few more clicks, because you're going to have to sign up or call Holistic Health Studio to get your tickets for that. But those are available too. Again, trianglebewell.com, and click the events link up near the top. Also, if you become a member of Triangle Be Well, there are every month a boot camp on how to get started, and that's for local members who want to come and show up. And it's 3 hours. It's typically on a Saturday morning, say 9 to noon or 10 to 1, sometimes afternoon. And you get delicious food, and we go through the entire eating plan, the exercise plan, and it will be very, very worthwhile. And that's a $65 value. It's free, and it's only available for members of Triangle Be Well. So if you want to join, a group of like-minded people who are interested in being well and not just managing their diseases medically, join by going to trianglebewell.com/join or click the join button up at the top. If you are curious about this and you don't live in the region, you can join as a virtual member, and you can read all about that also at trianglebewell.com. So let's talk about shifting behavior. So here's the problem, and this is relevant for you even, let's say, if you haven't committed to a plant-based diet or a really healthy lifestyle, but I'm sure there's been something in your life that you have wanted to shift in terms of your behavior. Here comes my water. I'm so excited. It's a double. You made it a double today. Thank you. Today's episode is brought to you by Lots of Water. It's so good. Is that city water, or that's your special formula?
Yeah.
Is it from filtered or from a bottle or delivered?
From the well.
From the well. Okay.
Filtered from the well.
Filtered from the well. Oh, feels so good. So if you've ever tried to change a behavior, let's say it's now today's Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, which is typically the day that most people's New Year's resolutions fail. So let's say if you've ever made a New Year's resolution, maybe it's, I'm going to quit smoking, or I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to eat better. I'm going to leave the donuts on the tray and at the office instead of having them. I'm going to have more salad. I'm going to choose lower fat options. Whatever resolution or decision you made. Well, we tend to know what we want to shift. Like if I were to give you just a couple of pieces of advice about how to be healthy, like none of them would surprise you, I don't think. I would say eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, right? No one's gonna like go, oh my gosh, I never heard that before. Now there's some paleo people who are, a little resistant to at least the fruits part of that, but I don't know anyone who tells you that vegetables are bad for you. So, eat more fruits and vegetables. I don't know anyone who's going to argue if I say cut back on processed food, on junk food. Most people wouldn't argue if I say cut back on the meat, on the dairy. Many people understand the science that the less of that you have, the healthier you're going to be. But there's other things. If I said, well, maybe move more, exercise. If you work at a desk job, get up every 20 minutes and do a couple minutes of stretching or exercises or squats or push-ups or whatever you do, right? Get moving. That'll help. If you're smoking, quit smoking. If you're a nervous wreck all the time, learn some stress management techniques, learn some breathing exercises, some stretching, some movement, some cognitive techniques, some meditation. Bring your stress levels down, you'll be healthier. Get enough sleep. Don't stay up till 2 a.m. on your computer or watching Netflix. Get those computers out of your bedroom, get the screens out, set a routine. Wean yourself off of the sleep aids, whether they're pharmaceutical or food-based or alcoholic, right? These are not esoteric. These are not secrets. But the problem is we know what we want to shift, but we can't seem to do it. Or we do it, but we don't sustain it. So we can do it for a week or 2 or 3 or sometimes 6 months or a year, but then we backslide. We end up back where we started, except not really. Because when we end up back where we started, we now feel worse than we did before we started, right? Because now we've tried and failed again. And so there's that much more evidence that we're failures, or that we don't have the willpower, or that there's something wrong with us and we can't figure it out. And then we're very vulnerable to someone selling us a magical solution. This one piece of equipment, the Thigh Master, that's going to make us thin, or this brand new diet that is going to solve our problem where nothing else did, or this pill that melts fat while you sleep, right? The more desperate we become, the more vulnerable we are to marketing ploys. So today I want to talk about 3 things as they relate to shifting our behavior, to upgrading our lifestyle. The first one is the idea of motivation and why it's so problematic. The second, I'm going to talk about 3 important mindsets, ways of thinking that can help us make changes in our lifestyle. And the third is 3 specific strategies. So we're going to start with the problem about motivation, then we're going to talk about mindsets, and then we're going to talk about strategies. So what is the problem with motivation? So let's talk, I want to talk about why we use motivation and how we misuse it. And now I'm not saying that motivation is not a good thing, but it's very strong medicine and we have very little of it. So it's important to use it the right way. But most of us, whenever we have a hit of motivation, we end up, frankly, wasting it. I'm going to talk about a model of behavior, not mine, but one that I find very helpful that I think will put motivation in perspective. And then I'll talk about 3 obstacles, that motivation related obstacles that when we want to shift, we want to change our behavior, if we are thinking in these 3 ways, we're going to fail. So let's talk about the use and misuse of motivation. So when you think of somebody motivating you, what sort of phrases come to mind? What do you hear? I hear things like, you gotta want it. Go pump it up. How bad do you want it? Right? I hear motivational speakers, and I imagine big rooms with somebody standing in the front with a little flesh-colored mic that comes out, and there's rock and roll music pumping, and they're pumping their fist, and they're telling everybody, you can do it, you can be better, do you want it, how bad do you want it? And everyone's, I want it, I want it. He goes, I can't hear you, we want it, we want it. And it works them up into a frenzy until you can almost taste that thing that you want. You're so highly motivated. Okay. And then we hear things like no pain, no gain. Right? So you want to be motivated through your pain, because we know that every change is going to involve some form of sacrifice. You're going to have to give something up. Or if you want to get great abs or great biceps, you're going to have to pump iron or do those push-ups or do those pull-ups, and it's going to hurt. So you're going to say, no pain, no gain. You've got to, be heroic about it. So I will say that motivation has its place. In fact, it is a precious commodity, because how many of us walk down the street hyper motivated all the time? Do you know anyone like that? Maybe 1 or 2 people, but they tend to be annoying and we tend to avoid them, right? We want to be we want to feel motivated, but not very often and not to that level. So when we have to realize that motivation is actually a state, an unusual state, physiological state of excitement, of true hunger towards something. So if this is something that we can get easily, if we can immediately go satisfy it. So I know a lot of people are very motivated to eat like Snickers bars or Kit Kats or other forms of candy. All right. And so if you're highly motivated, you're driving down the highway, you're driving on Route 40, you can stop every 10 miles or fewer and satisfy that motivation. It's very easy. And by the way, it's very cheap. If you have $1.25, you can get yourself a candy bar. So if you're highly motivated to eat candy, you can go from Wilmington to Los Angeles, and every 10 minutes you can satisfy that motivation. So we get these peaks, and then if it's easy to do, we do it. But for most of us, the motivation to do things that are the opposite of candy bars are pretty rare. So we're motivated to get that candy bar because of a dopamine response. Once upon a time, we ate a candy bar, and the brain said, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. This is survival food. This is what we need in order to survive. It's all this sugar and fat. This is fantastic. And there's no fiber to deal with. It just goes straight to the bloodstream. Oh, this is fantastic. And the brain rewards us for doing this by giving us a dopamine rush. And the dopamine rush floods our pleasure center and says, oh, this is great. This is great. And so that's called a learned response. So we learned that Snickers bar, that Kit Kat, that soda is a good thing because for survival. So we're going to keep on. We want to train the body, and we want to train behavior to go for that whenever possible. But if you're trying to do something like cut back, stop eating those Snickers bars, you don't have any dopamine rush. So the motivation you're going to get there is going to be almost entirely up here. It's almost entirely frontal cortex, the neocortex, the part of our behavior that inhibits our impulses. The kind of behavior that came when we became, as a species, a social species living in groups, and we couldn't just go around eating whatever we want or having sex with whatever we wanted. We had to moderate our behaviors for the survival of the group, for group dynamics. So it's much harder to be motivated from that level than it is from the dopamine rush. So when we do get motivated to change our behavior, if you get motivated to say, I'm going to quit smoking, and you know that smoking creates this dopamine rush, or if I'm going to stop doing fizzy drinks, or I'm going to get up in the morning and exercise instead of lying in bed, then know that that motivation is going to be precious, rare, short-lived, and therefore we need to spend it wisely. So the problem with the motivation, if you say, okay, I woke up on January 1st, or I went to bed on December 31st, and I made this resolution that I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to cut out the crap, and I'm going to eat good food. You can feel very motivated on January 1st, but over time, our motivation, it tends to go down. It tends to wane. By day 5, we're like, why did I do this again? I'm kind of miserable. I've got, maybe I cut out caffeine and I've got terrible caffeine withdrawal headaches. I'm a little bit shaky. Maybe I started eating too much fiber all at once and I've got the runs. And, I've lost a couple of pounds, but there's a, party this weekend and some of my friends making their favorite cheesecake. And you feel that motivation starting to go down, like it's smoke. Like you in your head, you know that you had it, but you can't even remember what it felt like. You can't even remember the sorts of thoughts that you had while on it because it's like a drug. When you're not high, you can't exactly remember what it was like to be high. And when you're not motivated, you can't exactly remember what it was like to be motivated. You can write it down and then look at it, but it's like reading someone else's writing. It doesn't feel like you. So there's diminishing returns. Motivation is fragile. You ever talk to someone who just poofed your motivation right away? You said, you know what, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to get an advanced degree and I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to become a such and such. And then someone says, well, that's not very realistic, is it? Do you know the cost of going back to school? You know how many years it takes to get that degree? Do you know the competition in that market? And all of a sudden you can feel like your giant bubble of motivation was just pop. Motivation is fragile. Motivation is also fickle. We can have it can be there one moment and the next moment it can just disappear, even if no one bursts it. Our own thought patterns can destroy our own motivation. Motivation is also fakeable. I don't know about you, but I don't always trust my motivation because sometimes I feel like I'm just saying it because that's the way I should feel rather than the way I actually feel. You see this a lot with people who do affirmations. So if you do an affirmation correctly, it can guide you, it can induce you into a new way of thinking about yourself. But the way most people do affirmations is they repeat something that's not true. I am happy and healthy and wise. And the more you say something that's not true, the more you repeat something, the more your subconscious goes, well, he's only repeating that because it's BS. It's not really true. And so you actually get a backlash. You get an unintended psychic consequence of repeating something over and over and over again. So, Amnon, if you wake up every morning and you tell your wife, the sun will rise today, and you say it 5-6 times in the morning before the sun rises, she'll look at you like you're crazy.
Right.
It's like, why would you say that if it's true? We don't repeat things that are obvious. We don't repeat things that are true.
Some people do.
Good point.
Never mind. Keep going.
But hopefully we don't vote for them. And the other problem with motivation is it's very hard to change intentionally. So thanks, more water. It's one of these things that when it comes on, it's great. It's almost like lightning striking. Or if you're a religious person, it could be like grace, something that descends upon you. It's not predictable. You could be sitting in a motivational seminar and feeling like, I can't wait to get the hell out of here. Or you could be walking down the meanest street in the world and all of a sudden a slant of sunlight hits a broken piece of green bottle and all of a sudden you're illuminated with motivation to change your life and do something differently. It's hard to make it happen internally. It's something that we can receive and we can ride when we get it. So if motivation strikes semi-randomly, it's fickle, how do we misuse it when it does strike? For one thing, when we're motivation junkies, it actually makes obstacles harder to surmount. It makes it harder because we're now thinking in terms of all or nothing. Like if you're motivated, oh, thank you so much.
Sir.
If we're motivated to, let's say, change our diet, and we're really relying on that motivation, you might say, okay, tomorrow I'm going to go out right now and I'm going to change everything. I'm never going to eat that crap again. I'm now going to eat only healthy food. And you have no skills, you have no experience, your environment isn't set up for that. But because you're so motivated, you're going to aim for a point of almost inevitable failure. So you're going to charge up the hardest part of the mountain because your motivation is it's kind of hijacked your sense. When we're focused on motivation, it precludes a lot of helpful mindsets that I'll talk about in a little while. And also motivation can blind us to effective strategies. So let's talk about where motivation fits in terms of a model of behavior. And this model of behavior comes from a Stanford researcher named B.J. Fogg. You can find it on the web at behaviormodel.org. And so I want you to picture, well, you can see it along with me, right? This will show up. This is a chart of, and up on the top, going up and down is motivation, and on the bottom is ability. And by the way, this is how I roll when the lightning to HDMI cable that I bought at Best Buy totally doesn't work, and in fact crashes Amnon's entire system. So this is how we do things. So motivation is up and down, ability is right or left. So for example, your motivation to do something could be low or high. And this is a model that will predict the likelihood of any behavior occurring, whether it's, health behavior or something as mundane as picking up a glass of water or walking and opening the door, brushing your teeth, making your bed, doing anything. This is a behavior model. So for any behavior, at any given time, your motivation can be low or high. And your ability to do it could be low or high, which is to say the thing you want to do could be easy or hard. So if you have a behavior that you're motivated to do, your motivation's pretty high, and it's pretty easy for you to do, you'll probably do it. Therefore, little person in a sort of a victory stance, champion. So for example, let's say you are motivated to brush your teeth before you go to bed, and you're in the bathroom, and the toothbrush is right there, and there's toothpaste, and the sink is working, and you have brushed your teeth many times in the past, so your motivation is high, and your ability is high, or it's easy. You're probably going to do it. Now, take another situation. You're not very motivated, and you have very little ability to do it. So you used to want to eat healthy, but now you're at a ballpark. You're at the Durham Bulls game, and all they are selling is cheese fries and Doritos and hot dogs and soda and beer. And everyone else is having it. So your motivation to eat healthy is very low. And you know what? Your ability to eat healthy in that situation is almost nil, unless you snuck in some fruit. Then you're at the mercy. The best thing you could probably get there is like a pretzel. So in that case, you're probably not going to eat very healthy. So along here, we have what BJ calls the action line. That if you see, it's not a straight line; it's kind of a asymptotic curve. That when you have a combination of motivation and ability, if you're below that threshold, you're not going to do the behavior. Whereas if you're above that threshold, you are going to do that behavior. Now, the thing that's missing here is a trigger. So a behavior happens because you remember to do it. So when you walk into the bathroom at night, the trigger could be your toothpaste and toothbrush sitting there. It could be that you have a behavioral habit of whenever you walk into the bathroom at night, you automatically go to brush your teeth. It could be, if you have any children, it could be they walk into the bathroom and then you yell, "Brush your teeth!" and that becomes their trigger to brush their teeth. Of course, the problem with that is if you don't say it, they don't have any internal triggers. So you want to establish triggers that aren't dependent on luck or fate or externals. You want to, for yourself, you want to establish triggers that will happen naturally. Either the cue, the trigger itself is in the environment, it's a reminder, or the trigger is a previous behavior. So you can connect walking into the bathroom with brushing your teeth. You can connect flossing with brushing your teeth. You can connect waking up with doing some stretches. So this is the basis of the model, and this is how we're going to be thinking about this question of motivation. So one thing to notice about that graph is that if we're at the top right, the motivation is if it's quite high, we can do difficult things. So if you're motivated enough, you can probably lift a car and save a toddler. It's a very difficult thing to do, but if your motivation is really, really high in that moment, you can do it. If you're incredibly motivated to eat healthy, even at the Durham Bulls game, you would probably stop on the way at a supermarket and pick up some fruit and hide it in your pocket, in your backpack. You'd pick up some nuts and seeds, some healthy snacks. You might pack yourself a whole grain hummus sandwich with salad, and you would sneak that in, and everyone else is doing their thing with the hot dogs and the pretzels and the cheese fries, and you're happily eating your healthy food. So if you're motivated, if you're really, really motivated, you can do things that are quite difficult. But you'll notice that as soon as the motivation drops a little bit, then things have to be really easy for you to still do them. So for example, you ever go to sleep, you ever get into bed and forget to brush your teeth, and you're lying in bed, and let's say it's cold, and you're really tired, and you're lying there and you go, oh, would somebody just brush my teeth for me? Just bring the toothbrush, bring a bowl, and like you have no self-respect left. But at that moment, it's no longer as easy to brush your teeth as it was when you're standing up at the bathroom sink and you're not exhausted and you're not freezing. So now you need more motivation. You need to amp it up. So there is an inverse relationship between the need for motivation and ability and how easy it is. So the key here is that if you rely on motivation, you can do hard things, but you can only do it for a very short time or very rarely. If you want consistency, and I would argue that the central, most important thing with any behavior change is consistency, that you, instead of, oh, I do this or I have to try to do it, it's you become the sort of person who does this. That becomes your identity. The consistency is what makes it a behavior rather than just a 1 or 2 time thing or a sprint or a little project. So if you want to make a habit into a behavior, a lifestyle, then the goal is not to always be motivated. The goal instead is to make it so easy that even when you're not motivated, you're still going to do it. So let's talk about 3 obstacles to shifting behavior. And we'll do an ABC here as a mnemonic. The A stands for addictions. The B stands for backdrop or environment, and the C stands for confused mindsets. So one is physiological, one is environmental, and one is psychological. So addictions, there are many different kinds of addictions. There are biological addictions. We can get addicted to sugar, we can get addicted to fat, we can get addicted to alcohol. These are substances. We can get addicted to drugs. These are substances that change our physiology, change our mood, and at first, and they change our mood in such a way that we get to avoid a really unpleasant internal state. And all of a sudden, we get to this really nice state. And they become addictions because they work less and less well over time, and we need more and more of them, and we need them more and more frequently. So in the end, instead of trying to achieve the pleasurable state, we're relying on these substances simply to not feel the worst of the state that we were originally trying to avoid. So that's an addiction. And obviously, if you're trying to change your behavior and your behavior is wrapped around addictions, that's going to be a big thing to overcome. And it requires looking specifically at the addiction and not just applying broad-based lifestyle strategies. Second thing is psychological addictions or comforting. So that maybe the thing itself is not physiologically addictive, or let's say you've gone through rehab and you no longer have any of the substance in your body, and you've done your 12 days or 21 days, and you're clean, but you're still thinking about it. So that's no longer a physiological addiction. That's now a psychological addiction. That's your thoughts about this thing are wrapped up in feelings of well-being, and more importantly, wrapped up in feelings of avoiding negative states that you would do almost anything to not have to live in. So there's psychological addictions as well. And there are also, related to that, behavioral addictions, in that they're simply ingrained habits. They're things that you do in response to environmental triggers that you may not even notice you do. You may not even be aware of it. So one great way to note what all these things are is to get married and have a spouse who will point them out to you, or have children who will point them out to you. So I have a behavioral habit that apparently I've had for many years that I was never aware of until I started doing public speaking in corporate settings. And then people come up to me and they'd say, somebody asked you a question and it looked like your brain shut down for about 10 seconds. So apparently I would do something like this. And then I would come back, my eyes would go crazy. I would kind of glaze over. I would like retreat into my own data bank to to come up with some answer. Then I'd come up with something and people are like, oh, good, he's back. He's not having some sort of seizure. But it was an ingrained behavior because that was the way that I had somehow learned or taught myself to answer questions I didn't know. It's to kind of go internally, but I didn't know what I was doing externally, and how sort of freaky some people found that. So we all have these ingrained habits, and if the habit is something like that, it may be harmless, it may not. But if the habit is every time I finish dinner, I need a sweet. I'm going to reach for a piece of candy. I'm going to reach for a dessert. I'm going to reach for a pie. I'm going to reach for a honey bun. Then that ingrained habit can act like an addiction. And the central function of all addictions is to distract us and numb us out from feelings we'd rather not feel. So perhaps for me, the feeling of standing up in front of a room and getting a question that I wasn't completely prepared to answer right away, maybe there was a psychological discomfort that I numbed out, that I simply went away. It's like, whoop, oh, I'm shutting down for a few seconds, hit pause. So instead of you see the arrow, it's now the two lines. I'm paused and I'm going inside to find the answer, and not feeling and not standing up there in the glare of people expecting me to be an expert, and perhaps I'm not. So all forms of addiction are an attempt to paper over, hide from, avoid, depress, suppress, repress a feeling state that we don't want to have, either through distraction or through numbing it out. Now, something very important here is that there is an addiction cycle that can take place. So let's say I know I shouldn't be eating this junk food. I shouldn't be eating these ring-dings. And I'm motivated to not eat them for a while. And so I throw them all out, or I hide them, or I put them in a locking cabinet. But then 2 o'clock in the morning, I give up. I'm thinking about them so much, I'm just going to have one. And I go to the all-night convenience store at the gas station, and I buy 6 packs of ring-dings, and I eat them all. That's like 12 ring-dings in 10 minutes. And for about 30 seconds, I'm really happy. Like while I'm eating the first one, I'm really happy. By the second one, I'm less happy. By the fourth one, I'm miserable. By the 12th, I can't tell you how bad I feel, right? I'm just wallowing in shame. Shame is one of those feelings that we universally try to avoid. So I keep this shame with me, and I want to get rid of this shame. And the best way that I know to get rid of shame is ring-dings. So you can see it's a cycle. It's an addictive cycle. So that's one of the reasons that motivation can be so dangerous, is that it makes us feel like we're never going to make a mistake again. and we're going to do crazy things. We're going to throw them all out and not have any other plan and not have any other strategy. We're just going to rely on willpower. And when it fails, we go into a shame response, and that in turn raises the possibility that we're going to go into another negative behavior, whether the one we're trying to avoid or a different one, because the shame fuels the cycle. So that's addiction. Now, B is for backdrop. And so backdrop refers to the world in which we live. And we live in many different environments. They're kind of nested, right? So we have our personal environment, our bodies, the clothes we wear, our homes, our offices, our vehicles. We have social environments, so the people we work with, our family members, the people that we see on the street, the people from our community, from our church. And then we have our economic and political environments, our society, the stores, the commerce that goes on around us, the charities, the institutions. And we are nested in all of these. And our backdrops are trigger rich. That's what backdrops are. They are triggers for behavior. All right? So if you want to know how someone's going to behave, the best predictor of how they're going to behave is how the people around them behave. We are social animals. We have evolved a survival mechanism that if the herd is all running to the left, we don't run to the right. Because if the herd runs to the left, there's a darn good chance that it's being chased by a predator. And if we run to the right, we're the one the predator is going to see out of everyone and will focus on us. So there's very good survival reasons to just follow the crowd, to not be an individual, to not think for yourself. Probably the people who thought for themselves died out, by and large. So all our environments, what other people are doing, what things are available, are all triggers for us. They're all visual cues and clues on as to how we're going to behave. So your backdrop contains all your available options. So if you're looking for food and you're at the Durham Bulls Stadium, your options are going to be limited to the things that they serve at the Durham Bulls Stadium. Your environment will have certain things as triggers that will make them top of mind. So here I am in the studio. 95% of the equipment here is a mystery to me. Right? I understand the ends of the production chain. I understand that that's a camera. I understand that that's a microphone. Everything else is a mystery to me. I don't know if you've ever shown people the studio itself. I'm looking at a rack of 3 DBX processors. I'm looking at signal processing. I'm looking at Eliminator. I'm looking at a DB display. There's lights. There's stuff all over the place here. I don't know what any of it means. But for Amnon, almost everything here is a trigger for a behavior. Right? So when he sits down in the studio, he knows, okay, this mic, is this mic hot? Is that one cold? Here's a trigger, up there, the audio display. Am I too loud? Am I too soft? There's triggers here for the Skype guests, for phone. Everything's labeled so that for Amnon, he doesn't have to, he has years and years of experience with this, but even so, it's almost like having a checklist in front of him that reminds him of everything that has to be done here. Otherwise, with how many different things could you push or press or turn up or down? This one device, this one mixer has got like 300 knobs and levers. So if we didn't have, but there's tape and it says what everything is. So the things that are visible in our environment are top of mind. So supermarkets understand this very well, right? They put the most popular cereals, they put the stuff they want to sell at eye height. They put the stuff they want to sell to kids slightly lower to that. Right? The sugary cereals are a little bit lower than the cereals for adults. And the stuff that they don't make very much money on, or that you're not going to forget, like toilet paper, tends to be up or down. It's, you're right, they are using the concept of visibility to manipulate your buying behavior. And so the things that are visible are the things you're going to have. If you have a refrigerator and the shelf where you look first is all junk food, you're probably going to forget that there's 2 cabbages, 3 broccolis, 4 cauliflowers, 5 leeks, and 6 beets in the crisper drawer. You're just going to go for the junk food. Backgrounds are also important because they tell us what's normal. So if you go to the Durham Bulls game and everybody's eating a hot dog, that's social proof that eating hot dogs is normal. And again, we want to be part of the crowd. There's a evolutionary survival reason for doing what everybody else is doing. If everybody else is eating the leaves off this tree and you're going to go and try the leaves off another tree that nobody's eating, well, maybe you'll discover a delicacy, or maybe you get food poisoning and drop dead. So the idea of what's normal, of what everybody else is doing, is very, very powerful. And there have been lots and lots of really scary studies. Some of them were done by Stanley Milgram around obedience, around what is considered normal, where perfectly ordinary people were brought into situations where they started behaving like torturers, unbeknownst to them, because the social norm of the experiment was you keep giving more and more higher and higher levels of shock to people who get answers wrong. There have been studies of people in a room where everyone's given a math problem to solve out loud, and the test subject is the last person to say the answer. Everyone else in the room says the wrong answer. It's a very simple problem. It might be like 3 + 8. Everybody else in the room says 12, and they see whether the person who's the actual subject of the experiment says 12 or 11. And it's amazing what percentage of people will just go along with everybody else. So whatever you see in your environment, we assume is normal. If you drive down Route 40 and you only see junk food from convenience stores and fast food restaurants, then you're going to assume, well, that's what people eat. That's what I should eat. I'm going to be part of the crowd. My friend Peter Bregman and I once decided we were going to write a book about eating healthy called Sneaking Fruit into the Movies. We haven't done it yet, but it was his metaphor about how hard it is to go against your backdrop, to go against the environment. That if you want to eat healthy, if you go to a movie theater, they're going to have popcorn that is soaked in some sort of fake butter. They're going to have the really expensive packs of candy, of chocolates. They're going to have huge buckets of soda. They're going to have the tacos. Right? If you want to eat healthy there, you better eat beforehand, or you have to sneak fruit in. Right? You just quietly pull out your apple, and you hope it's not too crispy because people are going to hear you.
Yeah, that should be a manual, not just a book. Training manual.
Right. Right. I could see it's gonna be with a camouflage cover. Yeah, how to sneak fruit into the movies.
Yep.
But it's emblematic that if you want to be healthy in this society, in almost every situation, you have to sneak fruit into the movies. You have to go against this environment in order to be healthy. So now there are also what I call the confusion mindsets. So, and these are not accidental. So we are confused about science. Right. So and you know what I'm talking about. If you ever heard the news and they say, well, a new study shows that we thought, we shouldn't drink, but now we should have 2 glasses of red wine a day. Or, now we thought that aspirin was good for preventing a heart attack, but it turns out it's not. Or whatever it is. We thought saturated fat was bad, but now saturated fat is great. So we're confused about the right thing to do. So remember at the beginning, I talked about there are things we all obviously know are good for us. Well, there's enough stuff coming at us from the news, from TV news, from our Facebook feeds that can make us doubt it. And there's enough people who make money off of our doubt that our society basically is illiterate when it comes to the difference between science and marketing. I want to say that again. Our society is illiterate when it comes to the difference between science and marketing. We cannot tell them apart, and the industries that produce most of the science and marketing are very happy to keep it that way. Most of what we see and read and we think is science is actually marketing masquerading as science.
Ian in the chat is asking, A is addiction, B equals backdrop. What is C?
Confusion.
Confusion. mindset.
What are these sources of confusion? Ian is keeping me honest. C is for mindset. What's so hard to understand?
Confusion mindset.
C is for a confused mindset or a confusion mindset. So, for example, what and I've talked about the difference between science and marketing plenty. If you go back into the archives at Nissan Communications, you look at previous shows. This is the one show I just wanted to talk about, like how to do something rather than just sort of rant about the state of affairs. But I guess I can't always help myself. But say, for example, something called the halo effect. So, for example, if we see a food that we like and it's a sponsor of like the Susan Komen Race for the Cure, there's a halo effect to that food. That food is associated in our minds with finding the cure for cancer, even if that food has been proven to give us cancer. So, for example, if we go to Whole Foods, this health food store, well, you know that most of the stuff they sell at Whole Foods is not healthy for you. There's a healthy soda aisle, there's a healthy cracker aisle, there's a healthy chip aisle, there's a healthy chocolate aisle. These are not healthy foods, but we apply the halo effect to them. We say, well, it says organic, it says GMO free, so I guess I'm going to have this organic GMO free 900 calorie slab of milk chocolate. All right, so we can fool ourselves with the halo effect, which has been used by to confuse marketing and science with us. Another source of confusion is another type of unintended consequence. It's interesting the way our mind works. It's called ironic rebound. So that if we do something good, then and we're thinking this way, if I've just like gone for a run or burned 400 calories on the machine, then some part of my brain goes, well, I deserve dessert. I've done something good, I deserve a reward. And so if we use this kind of ironic rebound, because the reward that we're going to give ourselves is far worse than the benefit we got from the good thing, we can end up backsliding constantly. And the more we do what we say we're going to do, the farther we end up from our goals. So that's one form of ironic rebound. It gets even more insidious. So McDonald's discovered that when they added salads and healthy options to their menu, you know what they sold more of? They sold more large fries and Cokes, because people walked into McDonald's and they considered the salad. They said, hey, maybe I'll have a salad. When they got to the front of the line, they didn't go for the salad, but some part of their brain thought that they had ordered a salad. Some part of their brain felt satisfied, like, I just had a salad. That means I can compensate for the salad by having the large shake or the extra large Coke or the apple pie. They compensated. They had a deserved dessert effect, an ironic rebound from something they hadn't actually even done. And McDonald's did this on purpose. They discovered that if we add salads, we're going to sell more junk food. And a really interesting experiment was asking people to estimate the number of calories in two different photographs of food. One was a plate that had like junk food on it. It had French fries, it had a hamburger, it had a Coke, and the other was the exact same plate, but it also had salad. So they said, the two are exactly the same. And they asked people, basically, which one of these has more calories? Well, what do you think they said? The one without the salad obviously has more calories. They're identical. We've added salad to one, but people, do you understand how crazy? You've just added food to a plate, but because it's salad, people somehow think that, this must be fewer calories. If you think about it logically for a quarter of a second, you know that can't be true. But that's the way our minds can work. And that's why C is for confusion. There are also a lot of myths about how to change our behavior, and these are related to willpower. So one myth is that we can just do a quick fix, that behavior is something that we can just decide to stop on a dime. And we should know this is a myth, but we fall for it again and again. Like, okay, New Year's resolution, tomorrow I'm not going to have another cigarette. Tomorrow I'm going to go to the gym starting that day. And we think that we can just immediately solve the problem. Another way of thinking, a myth about behavior, is that we can do a heroic sprint. So I used to fall for this all the time. I would be flabby and out of shape, and I would say, you know what? I used to be in such good shape in high school. I used to run. I used to play sports. I'm going to buy a pair of running shoes and I'm going to go run again. And I would put on the running shoes, and of course they never fit very well. The first I hadn't broken them in, and I would go for a 7-mile run because I was that motivated. You run out 3.5 miles. What are you going to do? You got to run back. So I'd come back from my 7-mile run. The next day I could not walk. The day after that I could not walk. By the 5th day, my legs are okay, but my feet are still sore and weeping and blistered. The shoes would go into the bottom of the closet, and I would not see them again for another 6 months. So the idea that I can just do some sort of heroic sprint to wellness, that somehow that all the years of my bad habits can be eradicated in a week. The third is a reliance on willpower, and we've already seen and talked about why that doesn't work. So the quick fix, we see this in marketing all the time. Lose 10 pounds in 10 days, flat abs fast, this one simple trick. These are the ads that tend to work the best, and we know these work the best because we see them all the time on the banner ads on web pages. We see them on the cover of the supermarket checkout lane magazines, right? 10 pounds in 10 days, whatever variation, 21 pounds in 32 days, get flat abs in 6 hours, in 8 minutes a day. And it's all based on the idea that there is a secret that other people know that you don't. And all you need is this secret, and that's your quick fix. It's not about consistency, it's not about effort, it's not about changing your mindset, it's not about changing your behavior patterns. It's going to be one secret that's going to solve all your problems. Okay? The heroic sprint is another one. So one of my favorite comedians, Stephen Wright, he deadpans, he says, I walked my dog yesterday all the way to Florida. I said, there, you're done. So a lot of us think of willpower, think about behavior change like Stephen Wright's dog. We're just going to do it all at once. So I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lift weights and I'll be done. That we can do this heroic sprint to get to the top, and then we don't have to do any more. Once and done. And that we can do some sort of instant and complete change. And this is the New Year's resolution idea, that I'm just going to stop right now. Myth number 3, willpower. So let's talk about where we get willpower. So you ever go to like a web page where there's full of bro science, where it's like guys talking about how they gain muscle and lose weight in the gym, or you're at a conversation, there's always someone who says this. They've got this expression of aggravated patience on their face, like they're just waiting to dump their wisdom on you, and they go, weight loss is really simple. It's just a matter of eat less, exercise more, or eat less, move more. And they just sit there, and they've just had the final word. And of course, what they're really saying is, anyone could do it, but people don't. That any sort of deviation from eating less and exercising more is just weakness. It's just people fooling themselves. Yeah, there's all this extra stuff people talk about. But basically, if you just control your eating and move, if you just don't be a pig, then you'll be fine. And so by implication, that blames people who can't lose weight, because they say, well, they're either making it too complicated, or they're ignoring the stark fact that it's their own behavior. And the idea there is, what that person's really saying is that people without willpower deserve their fate. So let's now talk about the 3 change mindsets. Oh, look at the time. We've gone for an hour, haven't we? Okay. Well, I was thinking I could do this for like another whole session. But do you have any questions? I'm so talky. I'm so chatty this morning.
That's why they don't ask questions.
Yeah, if you ask questions, I'll shut up and I could drink while you ask your question. I wouldn't have to sit here and drink publicly. I think we're going to pause for now. I think I've laid the problem, and anyone who's listening, hopefully this is an effective enough tease to get you back here next week.
Ian says, keep going next week. This is interesting.
Hey, thank you, Ian. So next week I'm going to talk about 3 mindsets for change, and going to talk about 3 strategies for change. And I'm going to show you a picture of Yoda. So those are my 3 promises: mindsets, strategies, and Yoda. So with that, I'll remind you all that I am Howard Jacobson, FUD, PhD. I'm also I'm MPH, Masters of Public Health, and I have a BA. So there's all my credentials.
You're in a good mood today.
I am in a good
it.
mood today.
Yeah.
The camera is my friend. So I run Triangle Be Well, which is a consulting service that does 2 things. It provides information and empowerment for people who want to get off the medical mill and get well, who want to become truly well instead of just managing disease. And it does so by giving you the right information to make informed decisions. So your doctor will not tell you all the risks and benefits of all the options. The drug companies will not tell your doctor the risks and benefits of all the options. If your doctor presented the risks and benefits of various medical treatments, honestly, you would say no to almost all of them, and you'd be right to. So you're not given a chance to make an informed decision. There's no informed consent in medicine as a system, and I want to change that. So if you come and work with me, either as a member of Triangle Be Well and Wellness Forum Health, or as a concierge or a consulting or a coaching client to help you implement this stuff in your life, I just share the evidence, what works, what's been scientifically proven, the preponderance of evidence, showing you how to read studies, how to understand when the media comes out with an outrageous claim, how to talk to your doctor when they say you should definitely go on a statin because it'll lower your rate of heart attack by 36%, how to understand that, and to help you and your family and people you love become happy and healthy and well. Thank you, Amnon, so much for this opportunity. Again, thank you for the double water, the extra large. I know where I'm going right after we turn off the camera. And to everyone out there, if you want to find out more, go to trianglebewell.com. And as always, be well, my friends.
You're tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, My Life, My Will with Gisela DiCarlo, The Tanya Love Show, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Triangle Be Well with Howard Jacobson, Lunch and Learn with Rabbi Yisrael Cutler, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Parent Dome with Ryan Miller, Current Affairs with Amnon Nissan. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.